Who doesn't have an actual play podcast these days, right? It seems like there are so many, potentially too many, actual plays out there, and it's hard to know where to start. In the coal mine of endless content, I will be your canary. Our team has listened to several hours of several different games, and we haven't even scratched the surface of 1% of the content on the market. But we have tried our best to give you a sampling of 10 of the best, with full bias, of course. And while this list is D&D-centric and 5e-centric, it is not entirely exclusive to that. That said, we haven't listened to all of them because we aren't time-bending wizards, and listening to an endless slew of D&D podcasts sounds like hell. But if your favorite isn't on here, leave it in the comments below. Also, do note, Critical Role is not on this list, not because it's bad, it's probably the best, but because if our viewership numbers are indicative of anything, you all already know what Critical Role is. And if you want to subscribe to one of the best D&D YouTube channels, subscribe and hit the bell. Also hit the like button because reasons. I don't have a good pun this week. Check out our Patreon, special thanks to our patrons, Remy Sweet and Ev Winter. Also, we're trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Love your help there. I am the Penitent with College of Lore. Happy Thanksgiving. And these are the top 10 actual play podcasts that aren't Critical Role. Honorable mention, College of Lore. Hey, we have an actual play channel. It's in flux with regards to exactly what we're doing there, but we're about to properly relaunch it, and we'd love to have you there. Number 10, Dice Camera Action. The only entry on this list to be discontinued. As for why it's no longer on the air, discussing that situation online is something we here at College of Lore refer to as Pandora's Can of Worms, so we're moving swiftly onwards. Dice Camera Action was a 5e podcast DM'd by wizard designer Chris Perkins and played by 4 people who are popular in the gaming or nerd sphere: Nathan Sharp, Anna Prosser, Holly Conrad, and Jared Knabenbauer. The game followed an expanded and altered run through some of 5e's best modules: Curse of Strahd, Storm King's Thunder, Tomb of Annihilation, and Waterdeep Dragon Heist, taking brief detours into some of Chris Perkins' homebrew environments. Genuinely missed this show, as back when it was on, it was one of the only things I carved out time of my day to watch on a regular basis. Still, the videos exist online at time of recording, and there is more than enough backlog to keep you entertained for a long while, and then leave you feeling entirely empty and unresolved after. Seriously though, the fact I'm advocating to watch a series that will never be finished is highly indicative of its quality. Number 9, Trials and Trebuchets, another 5e podcast. This one was made popular because one of the players is a video essay producer with 500,000 subscribers, Sarah Z. Though, popular may be a misnomer, as it seems like a bunch of people don't know this one, and honestly, it's an absolute gem. It's a 5e homebrew game taking place in a school for the arcane, a la Harry Potter or Strixhaven, much as I am loath to reference one of those things. It follows a party of 4 teenagers navigating everything from vaguely petty school dramas to apocalypse-level threats, so, you know, the usual. Currently ongoing, but with 3 years of backlog, there's a lot of content you can really sink your teeth into. And come on, who among us isn't a petty bitch for high school drama somewhere inside? Number 8, Arcane Arcade. This channel is run by fellow D&D YouTuber XP to level 3, and boy does the word fellow do Olympic level stretching there, as Jacob and I are fellow D&D YouTubers in the way that Michael Jordan and Jameson Curry are both fellow professional basketball players. Right, Jameson Curry is an NBA player who played a grand total of 3.9 seconds. Anyway, we technically do the same thing, but we're not really comparable. Arcane Arcade is a channel where Jacob and his friends post videos of playing through several campaigns, mostly, but not exclusively, 5e. Curse of Strahd, Rime of the Frost Maiden, some homebrew stuff. They have done enough pre-written campaigns to give you a really good library of those campaigns, though it does make it less a cohesive long-form story than several cohesive shorter stories. Like the above entry, it's Jacob carrying most of the known star power here, but that's just fine as a lot of the players he knows are very talented. It's one thing to hear a D&D personality talk about DMing, but another entirely to actually watch them DM, but Jacob puts his money where his mouth is. He's a very talented GM who manages to have his own distinct style, and someone who might be a more relatable example for a learning GM than someone like Matt Mercer. Notably, production value on Arcane Arcade is extremely high, honestly rivaling something like Critical Role, and that's a massive win. Go subscribe to XP to level 3 if you're somehow subscribed to us, but not to him. Number 7, Acquisitions Incorporated. There's just not enough content of Chris Perkins anymore. Sure, he has his hand in design of a lot of what comes out of Wizards these days, but Dice Camera Action is over, and while he was the longtime DM of Acquisitions Inc., he has since stepped back. In association with Penny Arcade, Ac Inc. started back in 2008 as a 4th edition game, and yes, the fact Acquisitions Inc. started almost 15 years ago makes me feel a certain way about my own mortality, thank you for asking. Currently played under 5e rules, and mostly played a few times a year at conventions like PAX, for both the sheer length of Ac Inc. and the fact it started as more of a podcast, there is just loads to listen to here. The game features an adventuring company called Acquisitions Incorporated, and their various adventures building up their megacorp. More a comedic and chaotic game, seriously, a lot of these characters would fit right in a game of Fiasco, shameless plug for yesterday's review. There is still emotional resonance to be found. The game features an ensemble cast, taking a few players from their catalog into every session, though almost always featuring Jerry Holkins, writer of Penny Arcade. The game also features the likes of Will Wheaton, Chris Stroud, Xavier Woods, and Anna Prosser and Holly Conrad reprising the roles from Dice Camera Action. Add this game to your list of acquisition. Incorporate them into your... Look, guys, making a pun for all of these entries is really hard. Number 6. Dice Friends. Dice Friends, or Loading Ready Run Tabletop, is a series of live-stream tabletop and board games run by Canadian comedians and streamers Loading Ready Run. And if you think that name sounds familiar, they are also the people who have raised millions of dollars for charity by playing Penn & Teller's Desert Bus. This is the first feature on our list to play all manner of games. Yes, they do have plenty of D&D 5e content, but they also do Vampire the Masquerade, Warhammer 40k, Over the Edge of all things. They even do board games. Not many of the games go incredibly long, but they go long enough to get invested and resolve narrative arcs. And they have an even larger rotating ensemble of players and GMs than AC Inc. does. If you're interested in exploring some non-5e things, this is a channel I would point you to. Loading Ready Run does a lot of great content, and this is among the best. Also, if you like Desert Bus or other things where people do content for way longer than is healthy, subscribe, because we eventually plan to do an hours-long stream where we rank every single spell in 5e. Number 5. High Rollers. In association with Yogscast, and DM'd by the legendary Mark Holmes, we have High Rollers. Currently in their second campaign, Holmes leads players Chris Trott, Katie Morrison, Kim Richards, Rhiannon Gower, and Tom Hazel through a campaign based largely on Eastern mythology, entirely based in 5e. They also have an entire first campaign called Lightfall, as well as 2 shorter spin-off campaigns called Uncharted Territory and Dead Reckoning. The game has a more serious bent, and a lot of the appeal of the game is the amount of pure skill that Holmes has as a DM. That being said, all of the product is very good. This is a more well-known one, and pushed to a degree thanks to some association with Wizards of the Coast. Thanks to that association, it's unlikely they'll move on from 5e anytime soon, but if you've already watched all of existing Crit Role, you'll certainly have the stamina for this. Number 4. Ox Venture. Keeping professional about this is hard because I love Outside Xbox and Outside Extra so very much. They are largely what sparked my interest in getting into video production in the first place. My fandom aside, Ox Venture is great, DM'd by the lovely Johnny Chiodini and played by Outside Xbox crew. The game is mostly 5e, though they have ventured into Blades in the Dark if that's more up your alley. The game does have a more comedic and certainly chaotic bent, but the characters do have a lot of depth. The series functions as both a long-form game and a series of shorter games, as the games are told through multiple mini-series starring the same characters. They just recently made a channel exclusive for their D&D content, as opposed to putting it on their video game channel, and it's a really good watch. Try to watch some backlog and tell me you won't be dreaming of Spider Tigers. Number 3. The Adventure Zone. This series is put on by the McElroy brothers and their father of My Brother, and Me. And while some of the shine has faded on this series, it still has an active and enthusiastic fan base. Another game mostly based around 5e, the McElroys have ventured into other systems, most notably Monster of the Week and Quiet Year, but also Fate Core, which was featured in our RPG review, shameless plug, shameless plug. The series looked at the line between serious and comedic and ran a zigzag pattern over and back several times, which you'd think would cause tonal inconsistencies, but actually played pretty well. It started as a module, but has since evolved well beyond that. Around since nearly the onset of 5e, and played on a bi-weekly then weekly basis, there's a lot of backlog to look at here. That or one Sarah Z retrospective video, your choice. Number 2, No Rolls Barred or Parts Unknown. So, this might be an odd choice for number 2, but hear me out. No Rolls Barred is a channel that features mostly board game content, and Parts Unknown is almost entirely wrestling content. However, the spattering of tabletop RPGs is really just genuinely excellent. This is not long form, more a dabbling for a few hours, but a lot of the improv games alone border on intense roleplay with games like Fun Employed and Snake Oil. Their Blood in the Clock Tower series is probably the best dive into that game on YouTube. Fiasco and especially Call of Cthulhu are more traditional role-playing games, and have been played excellently on this channel. And finally, their top RPG is City British Wrestling, a slightly comedic RPG done in the Worldwide Wrestling Engine on the Parts Unknown channel. The cast is ensemble, and the headliner is Adam Blampier of What Culture fame. And if you'd like to point out that my presentation style is derivative of his to a point of nearly ripping him off, I am aware of that. Number 1, Dimension 20. Well, if we couldn't say Critical Role, this was going to be number 1, wasn't it? Dimension 20 is a feature of College Humor, specifically on their Dropout premium streaming service. They do several short, at least short-ish, games, mostly centered around 5e. The DM for most of these games is Brennan Lee Mulligan, who, if you don't know who he is, he's essentially the hottest rising DM of the past few years. Once again an ensemble, featuring many of the cast members of College Humor, their games are just long enough to sink your teeth into without getting intimidated by the backlog like you might with Critical Role, or other long-form games. From one channel with College in their name to another, cheers for being the top actual play that isn't Critical Role. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us in the comments below. With so many on the market, I'm really curious what gets recommended here. Thank you for watching this video from College of Lore. Remember to like this video, subscribe to join the party, and have a fantastic adventure.